Welcome back to the OSM channel. This is my homemade barrel stove style maple syrup evaporator, and it works okay, but it has room for improvement. And in today's video, I would like to implement many of those improvements. So let me start going down the list here. For one, I don't have these pans sealed up really well on the top of the firebox. And what I find, I do have a chimney on the back of this, but there's a lot of areas where fire and smoke can escape in between the pans, and that is clearly an issue because we're seeing a lot of carbon buildup on the sides of the pans, which that shouldn't be. We should only be heating the bottom of the pan, so I plan to seal the top of this up a lot better. Next issue I would like to address is when I start a wood burn in here, later on throughout the day, I have an issue with burning those coals down. Like, this thing literally fills up with hot coals, and I feel like we're just not extracting the heat out of those coals. For one, I would like to add 2 reburn tubes directly beneath these boiling pans. So I think that's going to help to reduce smoke output and improve burn efficiency inside the firebox. And another thing I'd like to do is add an air injection line down into the coal bed. I have a zero clearance fireplace in my house that is a high efficiency unit, 2020 EPA compliant. And looking at the design of that unit, it has an air injection line down low and it has 4 reburn tubes. And I'm planning to kind of copy that a bit. We'll add that air injection line, have the 2 reburn tubes up high, and then a final thing I'm considering doing is adding a bit of insulation to the single wall steel burn chamber. Now, I know ideally one would want to use fire brick, but I'm watching my spending this month, and I do have these old bricks laying around the property, so I may just throw these in the bottom of this unit. I know it's not as efficient as fire brick. I know these traditional bricks may crack, but I mean, you think about how they used to manufacture iron. They used to have these massive blast furnaces, and I think those were really just made of brick. Perhaps they had a clay lining. I had some clay, I'd use it, but I have this brick today, and I think we're just going to make that work. Just finished up for the day, and I'm really happy with how everything came out. We'll have to test it out. That'll probably be the next portion of this video, but just going over what I completed today. I remade the trays, and I tried to seal everything up the best I could to ensure no smoke or heat escaped the firebox aside from escaping through the chimney. It was tricky sealing up the trays to this old smoker because everything's kind of warped. So in the back, I used a piece of rebar, and then I also used some timing chain, and that actually worked out quite well. Just kind of weaved it along those warped panels and tack welded it in. Did a bit of the same thing in the front here. That looks pretty good. And obviously you can see I made these secondary burn tubes out of some old pipe I had laying around. These are not welded into the firebox, so when these do eventually rot out, I could just pull them right out and replace them. Now, on my fireplace inside, these holes face in the direction of the flow of the fire, so I'll probably have these holes facing back towards the flue. And also, as opposed to having them in the center of these trays, I moved them slightly forward. So we'll just have to see how well this works out. Another thing I did is I added that air injection line in the bottom of the firebox like I was talking about. Didn't do anything crazy here, just another piece of that pipe, drilled a hole through the back wall there. And then the nice thing about this design is once that rots out, I could just pull that out and throw in a new section of pipe. We'll have to see how this pipe does with ash collection, but I mean, if it's drawing air in, I would think that would help to blow the ash out of there. I didn't bother to drill holes in here because in my fireplace inside, there's no holes in that air injection line. There's also an air inflow port on the cover of this firebox, which, you know, it's adjusted with this plate right here. So I have another way to kind of adjust airflow into the firebox, but I think adding that air injection line in the bottom of the firebox will really help to burn off those coals and improve temperatures in here. And the final thing I need to do is just finish laying brick on the inside, reconnect the chimney, and then I think we will be ready for a test burn. Well, I just moved the upgraded barrel stove to its new home. There's plenty of clearance in between it and combustible materials, but I also keep a fire extinguisher nearby. And once this thing starts burning, I'm pretty much out here with the exception of going inside to eat lunch. But I just wanted to show you what everything looks like before I fire it up tomorrow morning. As mentioned earlier, fire brick would be much better to line the firebox with, but budget's kind of tight this year, so I'm just making do with what I have. Had some brick laying around, and I believe it's going to be better than nothing. There's our air injection line, which the nice thing about having that loose is I could reach from the back and I can move that forward or back. I could empty that out without emptying out the firebox if I need to, if that line were to get clogged. Of course, we have our reburn tubes, and I'm really curious to see how well these tubes perform. Again, I have the holes pointed forward towards the flue because that is how everything is designed on my fireplace inside. I did a really good job welding up the firebox. The trays are going to sit on top of here, but just the rest of today I spent a lot of time just welding up all these seams to ensure that there's no air gaps, to try and ensure this is as airtight as possible. So after burning for about 5 hours, what are my thoughts on the upgrades to this unit? Well, I'll say the best thing I'm noticing so far is there's almost no smoke coming out of the chimney. Of course, when I load up the firebox, you know, I'm burning wood at probably 20% moisture content right now. It smokes a little bit when you first load up the firebox and as you reload it. But after you let the wood sit in the firebox for about 2 to 3 minutes, smoke clears right up. And the reason I'm not seeing any smoke coming out of the stack, for one, I'm burning dry and seasoned wood, but mainly because of these reburn tubes. You know, they inject extra oxygen on top of the fire, so those hot gases and smoke that would otherwise go up and out the chimney is now reburning. Now, is that adding extra heat to the firebox? I think it's adding some. I'll give you a look inside the firebox. See how there's a good bit of flame on top of the fire. So do those air injection lines help to get the firebox hotter? I'd say slightly, but I'm not really seeing the temps out of this unit that I would like to see. I think if you really want to achieve maximum temperature inside the firebox, it would be best to add a ceramic insulation as well as fire brick. But additionally, if you really want to hit those high temps, I think you have to do some type of forced air injection. So you'd have to have some type of electric fan injecting a steady stream of pressurized air into the firebox to really liven this thing up. But something I do to get things going a little bit faster is I just crack the door open, and that increases oxygen flow into the fire and it gets it hot enough. So I have my warming tray and then my main boil tray, and we're doing okay right now. I'd like to see more condensation coming up out of the pans, but not too bad for, you know, a homemade little unit. As for the air injection line I added in the back, this is helping the fire get maybe a little bit hotter, but what it's really doing is it's really helping to break down the coals that would otherwise sit at the back of this firebox and just take forever to break down. So this strategic air injection line is working really well. The pantries that I remanufactured, I'm really happy I did this. I'm really happy I spent the time to really seal this up, because now I can stand right next to this unit and not have to inhale smoke from the firebox. Everything is sealed up really well, so when I get close and I go to transfer sap from the warming pan into the main boil pan, I'm only inhaling vapors. As for the hot gases and smoke, well, it really gets reburned in the firebox, but the rest of that just goes right up and out the chimney as it should. As for the damper valve, I really don't use this. I find that if I start to close that damper, the temperatures inside the firebox just pretty rapidly decrease. So if I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to control the temperature and do, you know, my final boil and really control how much moisture evaporates out of the pan, perhaps I'll use that damper, but otherwise I like to run this thing wide open, because that's the only way you're really going to get the temps you need without any kind of forced air injection. So, but anyway, I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Please share your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. And as always, I will catch you on the next one.